Ghost Dance by Connor de Bruler. The best advice I got at the Silver Dollar was not to perform dance, a faux sexy tease set to some radio staple. If I wanted to make money, I had to market myself, give the gawkers something they couldn't get from the other girls. Another dancer had cornered the goth angle. She wore black lingerie and danced to music like The Kills and Rob Zombie. A Latina girl danced to reggaeton and the occasional corrido. Two former cheerleaders and an ex-Hooters girl had monopolized hip-hop. Denise, an expert ass clapper from Memphis, suggested I dance to country music. She told me to wear a Confederate flag bikini top and cut-off jeans. I could play with a red MAGA hat and toss it into the crowd. I said if I were going to do that, I might as well strip in an SS uniform and dance to Flight of the Valkyries. I never really had much of a persona there. I lost a lot of money paying the offstage fee to venture beyond the tip rail. I thought there might be money out there, shy guys who need attention, somebody to listen. I didn't understand a small club like the Silver Dollar, a one-level stucco building on the edge of the freeway, didn't attract any real high rollers. Some nice guys spent a little, but most of the guys in the back were total rocks. No tips. No lap dances. We had minimal protection since our only bird dog besides the DJ and the owner was getting old. A rock followed a dancer to her car one night. A week later, two men shot each other in the guest parking lot over a bag of dope. I landed an audition at the only 7-Up factory in the region 60 miles north on the interstate, a place called the Julep Cup. There, I managed to carve out a niche. It was some kind of old Hollywood, glamour aesthetic. I danced to a lot of PJ Harvey, the B-52s, Mr. Bungle's Pink Cigarette, even some of Beck's tracks from Midnight Vultures. Denise, who had taken me under her wing since I started, stole $80 and my Kate Spade bag my last night at the old club. My father had given me that bag for graduating high school a month before he gave up on trying to kick Oxy and drove out to the Blue Ridge Parkway to take his own life. Denise didn't know that. She felt betrayed, but I was too upset to ever forgive her. The Julep Cup had an ethical house and offstage fee, but I wasn't making near what the other girls made my first 2 weeks. The girls at the Julep Cup were chameleons. They didn't sell themselves, they sold the ambience of the club as if they were spawned from the same material as the upholstery and wall lining. Their game was more about being in the right place at the right time with mathematical precision rather than an old-fashioned hustle. This place was in the fast lane. I had no sensei. No guidance. These girls were all veterans with IRAs who paid their rent and child care bills on time. I dialed back the persona but kept the song list and started flirting with most of the newcomers. I went for the reserved types who maybe wanted to talk about their day or current events. I gave the stingy ones my sob stories, keeping them short and believable. The first night I made any real money, a group of Bangladeshi engineers came in to celebrate. The younger ones were terrified. They didn't look old enough to drink. I installed myself as their unofficial strip club etiquette coach. I paid my rent and the $75 late fee the next day. I kept working there and learned to keep up. I got friendly with a few bird dogs. The doorman's wife was a baker and brought us cookies and cupcakes a few times which the girls threw in the trash, or ate in front of her to be polite before purging in the bathroom. My aesthetic didn't attract the same kind of patron each time. I had no specific types. A lot of older men preferred to watch me dance from a distance. Only younger, foreign men wanted to have a drink with me. Frat guys and sports bar type guys bought lap dances. 6 months into working steady, I started getting a civilian. Civilians are other girls, customers not peelers. Girls came in groups most of the time, loud, obnoxious groups. Not this lady. The loners were lesbians. I don't care for women, but I never cared for any of the men I danced for either. Dancing for a woman was a nice break from the creepy looks and perverted questions. I became this woman's all-time favorite. She had lunch there once a week and bolstered my Friday night revenue. She didn't ask for my name like a lot of the guys when she first bought a lap dance. I told her my name was Garland, like Judy Garland. She gave me her full name, Vandy Fisk. It sounded made up, but she didn't sound like she was kidding. I followed up with the usual chit-chat and asked if she was from around here. "No," she said. "I'm from Montana." "All the way from Montana?" She nodded. I kept playing the part. I asked her if she liked girls. The follow-up was to say that I liked girls too. Maybe she'd give me a 10 spot or a 20 right there. Instead, she said, "No, I don't," in a flat, matter-of-fact tone that killed my next line. Then she said, "There's something about you that interests me." So, that was her fantasy. We were playing the latent game. She wanted to pretend she was only dipping a toe in the same pond. I shifted gears and told her I usually didn't dance for women, but something drew me to her. That was a good line. That was $20 tip flirting, but I only got another 5 once our time was up. The next time I saw her, she was standing in the parking lot smoking a cigarette. My shift was over. She was waiting for me. My stomach churned. Of all the creeps I had dealt with, I didn't give Vandy a second thought. She didn't smile when she saw me, she just handed me a wad of cash. "Can I pay for some of your time?" "I don't see people outside the club," I said. "I'm not paying for your stripper persona. I'm paying you." "I don't do that kind of thing." "I'm not trying to buy sex," she said. "I'm a private investigator. I wanna talk to you." "What do you wanna talk to me for?" "You're not in trouble. You might know some things that could help me find someone." I asked her if I could see some proof. "Sure," she said as she set the cigarette in the corner of her lips and handed me a leather card case. Both her driver's license and her PI license were issued from Montana and her real name was Vandy Fisk. I handed her back the case. "This isn't issued for North Carolina," I said. "No, it isn't. That's why I need your help. Under your state's law, I only have a 30-day window to investigate before I'm operating illegally." "How many days do you have left?" 10, she said. "I'll buy dinner. We can talk in public." I shrugged. "I'll follow you in my car," I said. I told her I thought I was the one playing her, but she was playing me. "You're good at what you do," she said. "My daughter was a stripper." She stopped. "She's dead," Vandy said as she pulled out a notebook from a portfolio. She had taken me to a lonely diner in the center of town where the booths were fake leather and the kitchen grease condensed on the ceiling tile. The server made it clear with her expression that she didn't approve of lesbians. I was wearing my gray hoodie and expensive leggings. Vandy was wearing jeans and a dark blue windbreaker. "I'm sorry," I said. "I know what that's like." "Yeah? That's too bad. You know, I took this assignment and came all this way because I know where my client is coming from. The girl I'm looking for is a lot like my daughter." The server brought Vandy a cup of half-caff and my Miller High Life. She told me I could get anything I wanted, so I ordered an omelette and some toast. When the old bitch was gone, I asked Vandy why she singled me out. She paused for a second, then told me nobody from the Silver Dollar would talk. "How do you know I worked there?" A girl let it slip. "Seemed pissed off you left that club." I rolled my eyes. "That bitch thinks I owe her." Makes more sense to me that a person would talk more about a place if they didn't have to worry about keeping their job. It's been a minute since I worked there. She showed me a glossy photo printed off Facebook. Do you recognize this girl? I studied the face. I didn't recognize her at first. I felt bad about it and kept staring at the photo. This dark girl wasn't wearing any makeup. It was hard to picture her at the club. I still wasn't certain when I gave Vandy a name. I think that might be Selena. That's the name she went by? Yeah, I said. She was Latina. How do you know? She danced to Mexican and Puerto Rican music for all the road and construction guys. Vandy wrote everything down. She had pretty handwriting. Did you hear her speak Spanish? Not really. I assumed she could, I said. Did she ever speak it with the Hispanic clientele? We don't listen to each other's conversations in the club. We're too busy hustling ourselves. The music's too fucking loud anyway. Right, she said. Maybe she talked about where she was from? Girls at the Silver Dollar don't talk like that. Everybody has a right to their secrets. Some do private parties, some do drugs, some escort, some have pimps. You don't ask about that kind of shit. It isn't a sisterhood. Every other girl on the pole is your direct competition. Noted, she said. These questions are weird. Everything helps, she said, looking down at her notepad. I drain the beer in front of me. Are you certain this is her? I shook my head. It's hard to tell without the makeup. Her hair was lighter than that. Here, she said, and started scrolling through her iPhone. She showed me another picture, a selfie. Oh, shit. That's her, I said. That's Selena. You're sure this time? Definitely, she had a tattoo of a dream catcher on her hip. That's who I'm looking for. Good. Did she have any regulars? No, I said. Nobody liked her like an all-time favorite, but she got followed to her car once. Do you know who? Fuck yeah, I do. That was Gorgeous George. I couldn't believe I had forgotten about Gorgeous George. Pretty boy. We just called him that 'cause he was gross. He was this big old creep. They said he had her by the throat before the bouncer got to him. Can you describe him to me? He's white. Overweight. Thin mustache. Scruffy. Ear hair. Dracula widow's peak. Smelled like beau and cheap cigs. Do you remember his real name? I don't, I said. He get banned from the club? He better have. Didn't see him again. I hope he went to jail. Do you know if Selena pressed charges? No, I never saw either of them after that. Is that when she went missing? Vandy shook her head. I wouldn't be here if that were the case. Your old co-worker was already a missing person by the time any of this happened. She's from Montana? Vandy nodded. I got my omelette and started eating my toast first. She thanked me for the information and gave me her card if I thought of anything else. She paid the check and left me alone in the diner. On my drive home, I tried to remember more about that weirdo we called Gorgeous George. I was sitting in my living room with my makeup remover when I thought of something and called Vandy. Hello? She said on the other end of the phone. It's me, Garland. That was fast. I forgot to tell you something about that guy. Hold on, let me get my pad. I waited. Alright, go ahead. He had a Looney Tunes vibe. He was crazy? No. Like a perverted Looney Tunes thing. He was into them big time. He drew Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny on bar napkins and gave them to the girls. You're joking. Could he draw well? They were great. They looked like real cartoons. And if he got a good look at your crotch, he'd say, "I thought I saw a putty cat," in the Tweety Bird voice. That's perfect. Can you think of anything else? That's all I got for now, I said. You don't know how much you helped me out, she said. You can call me anytime if you remember anything. It doesn't matter how trivial. Hey, do I get to know what's going on? I can't do that right now, she said. It wouldn't be right. I had assumed as much and let it go. 10 days passed. I checked my phone after every dance, between each meal, sometimes in the middle of the night. I drove myself to tears trying to recall new details, to absorb the knowledge from the collective ether. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't relax. I couldn't focus on making money. Had I caught whatever fueled vanity? Touched by the same virus? What did I care? I barely knew Selena. I didn't even know her real name. I had started something and didn't know how to stop. I became desperate for some kind of closure to release me. Working at the club became unbearable with the distraction. Every rumor I had ever heard in passing now dogged me like an opiate craving. Every man became a ghost and every dancer was a reflection of the same image while I suffocated behind glass. I half expected this strange anxiety to die off on the 11th day, then I knew it was over. I could only think of Andy in terms of fleeting images. Over time, her features warped in my memory and began to fuse with other civilians that I began to see around the club. I imagined her getting on the plane and going back to wherever she came from in Big Sky Country, empty-handed. But Selena's face never changed. The fever subsided and I got my focus back as I continued to work the club. The experience stayed with me. The missing girl and the out-of-state guy on the hunt lost their urgency and became another part of my growing collection of stories. It was far from the worst thing to ever happen to me, but it was, up to that point, the most interesting. Every night at the club was worth a conversation. I started writing everything down on my mornings and days off. It felt like the only way to separate these things from myself, to stop carrying them around. I used to wake up in the morning already crushed under the pressure of what might come, the looks, the comments, the groping, the haggling, the complaining, the requests. Sometimes I would write a few sentences, sometimes a few pages, and then it was gone. I was no longer a receptacle for these experiences, they were just passing through me. I had a few good nights that next month. A 60-year-old car dealership owner asked me and another dancer to hang on his shoulders in the champagne room while he threw a party for some Florida investors. A group of Japanese businessmen stormed the club until closing the following week. The same weekend, I had a college student thrown out for trying to lick my breast. On a Thursday afternoon, I was dancing for the only 4 guys in the club. They were all in their early to late 30s, all in business casual attire, and they didn't appear to be together. I danced to a standard lounge classic, slow and seductive. Just one guy was paying attention. He was the youngest looking of the group. He wore a red polo shirt and khakis. He tipped me a few dollars and clapped when I was finished. I gathered up what little money had been thrown on stage. While I was doing my best to scoop it all up, he took his napkin out from under his beer and wrote something down. It looked like he had already started writing it while I was dancing. He finished it quickly and folded it before hooking it into my G-string. I hated it when guys did that. Now and then, men would sneak business cards or religious pamphlets into a stack of cash. My adrenaline raced every time I saw a guy doing it, since thinking about Gorgeous George. I got to the back and straightened up my money, then pulled the folded napkin from my hip. It was only a phone number and a short note that said, "Great set." Pimps and human traffickers frequented clubs trying to earn the girl's trust. I threw the note in the trash. Things started to pick up at around 8 o'clock. I had a shot of tequila with an old black man who said he was from Detroit and moved down south to be closer to his sons. I gave a private table dance for a young man who was afraid to smile because of his bad teeth. Toward the end of the night, I was in the dressing room considering paying the house and DJ fee to go home early. One of the veteran dancers was sorting out her locker, talking trash with two other girls. I wasn't listening until I caught the end of a girl's comment about a drawing. I immediately listened. Ooh, that's the most perverted shit I've ever seen. Is that guy a serial killer? You have to show Everett. Get his ass up out of here. I stood up and looked at them. She was holding a bar napkin. I stared at the cartoon, Sylvester masturbating his anthropomorphic penis, and he crushed Tweety Bird's skull under his foot. Who the fuck drew that? I said. Young dude. Red polo. Seemed cool until he gave me this garbage. Show that to Everett and get him